All right, welcome back to the SDR podcast, otherwise known as the Start the Rebuild podcast. This is episode, I think, 4, if you count my solo episode of the actual rebuild. I'm your co-host Tim Fournier, alongside Ian Mills.
What's up, guys? Yeah, I was not here for last episode, but I am back fighting something fierce. But I'm all right.
Yeah, we got a main.
So I'm glad to be back. Apologize for missing. What's
Oh,
up?
sorry, it just froze for a second. But
Yeah.
so we got to maintain our goal of 8
Yeah.
episodes, 8 weeks.
Yes, we do. Yes, we
That's the
do. And
major goal.
we are after this episode, we should be on our way, but never satisfied. Got to keep grinding. But yeah, happy to be back. It's been what for the last time we've done this together. It's been almost 2 weeks. You were in Florida, right?
Yep,
Uh, so yeah, happy to finally be back on and talking some rebuild. You know what I'm saying?
that's right. All right. Two things I want to bring up that are actually NFL related. I know we keep
Okay.
saying like we're not necessarily sports podcasts anymore, but it's still something
Yeah.
we're passionate about. We haven't talked about this at all, and it's been a while, and it happened while I was gone. What do you think
Mhm.
about the no more Diggs trade?
Oh yeah. So admittedly, the Bills do not have a wide receiver one at the moment. You could, though, argue that they didn't at the end of last year either. The way I'll put it is that Stephon Diggs helped Josh Allen in his early part of his career so much, not just in his early part of his career, but over the last, when they were making over the last 3 years when they were, making deep playoff, or I shouldn't say deep playoff runs because a lot of them ended in the divisional round, but when they're in contention to go deep into the playoffs. However, last year he certainly took a step back. Like he lost a step. I don't think there's any denying that. He didn't have a 100-yard game after October 15th. Um, and I mean, it's not like he wasn't getting targeted. He was. Like, there were games where he was getting targeted 8 or 9 times and ending the game with 3 catches. Like that was pretty common to happen. So I think I was on Twitter. It might have been Ben Solak. I don't know if you follow Ben Solak,
Hmm.
but I think he tweeted it. And if he didn't, I apologize, whoever did. But it was something about his route tree from last season, and it was like, well, if you look at it, basically he's just lost. He lost his ability to be a deep threat. Like he can't compete, and we saw that last year. I mean, the Chiefs game, he
I
dropped. I
think I
mean,
saw that exact graphic. It's like all the whole route tree, and then like the go
yeah,
route like
the
was
go
red,
route is
had no
red,
stats there.
and that has not really been the case. So he's still, short to intermediate. And we even saw that last year. Like he would have games where he had 8 or 9 catches, and exactly, I think the Giants game, the October 15th game, he had 8 or 9 catches for exactly 100 yards. So it's like he is good at, those short to intermediate routes. Still to this day, he is. But you know who else is on the Bills roster? Khalil Shakir, Dalton Kincaid, Dawson Knox. Like they have guys, and now Curtis
Dang.
Samuel. So it's like they have guys to fill that role, whereas Stephon Diggs, you know, like with how good he's been, I know there's obviously some, you know, dramatics, like it's just like being a wide receiver in the NFL. I think it kind of comes with hand in hand. And I also think his tweet the night before he got traded about, whatever it was with Josh Allen. I forget exactly what it was, but I think it was someone said that Josh Allen doesn't need Stephon Diggs. Stephon Diggs was like, "Oh, are you sure about that?" And then you know, the next morning they traded him. So
Yeah.
it makes sense. They do need to get a wide receiver one, and it's going to have to be in the draft because, I mean, what else you can do? Trade for Brandon Ayuk? Maybe trade for T. Higgins. The Bengals aren't going to trade T. Higgins to the Bills. Like that's not going to happen. So they're gonna be having to be drafting a wide receiver one. Again, I think Stephon Diggs did so many good things for Buffalo, but yeah, I think it was probably time to go. Them eating $30 million is kind of unfortunate, but it is only for one season. Like I think they've certainly set themselves up to be pretty average this year. Like they're gonna like all but certainly gonna take a step back this year. But they're opening so much cap space for the next season.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe not average. When I say take a step back, I mean You know, you never know. You still have Josh Allen, you still have James Cook, you still have a good O line. Like
Yeah.
anything can happen, and it really depends on what they do in the draft. But they're setting themselves up to kind of get out of cap hell, so to speak, not
Yeah.
for this season, but for the upcoming offseason, next offseason.
Yeah. In terms of the 30 million in dead cap, they would have owed him that regardless.
Yes, exactly.
But
Yeah,
it
yeah.
would have just been spread out through the rest of his contract.
Right.
Rather than, except now you just get it all off the books now, and moving forward you don't have to worry about it the rest of the way. So like my kind of off that, my initial gut reaction was like the Bills are trading their number one receiver, elite receiver, Stephon Diggs, for a second round pick next year and have to pay $30 million in dead cap. What's the thought process here? But I think his attitude problems combined with um you're paying Josh so much money that an aging receiver asset like this, getting something for it now, is definitely big too. Um, and that second round pick is actually, I think, very valuable when you're paying a quarterback that much. You like having high caliber first contract players is huge, which is why I'm a big proponent of. I don't think the Bills should trade up to get a receiver in the draft at all either, especially with how deep the receiver class is. I think they should just try to draft like 2 or 3 and try to ensure that they hit on 1 or 2.
Yeah.
Um, and I think with the timing of it, I think we've kind of seen that with the Chiefs too. Like when you have the quarterback on the rookie contract, you want to get that like stud receiver to really develop the quarterback. But then once you have to pay the quarterback that huge contract, there's not really room to pay a receiver $25 million if you want to have the rest of the team be filled out correctly.
Yeah.
And what's even more valuable, like I said, is valuable first contract players, and you're getting that in the second round pick. In the draft, I think the Bills would actually be, if it were at all possible, if they could trade out of the first and have an early second, because I think the receivers from 28 where they are now to like 40 are going to be like, just pick your favorite. There's like 5 that could go in those 12 picks.
Right.
Um,
Right.
but that I just kind of wanted to talk about that because obviously we're we're Bills fan. I would consider
Yeah.
myself a Bills
Yeah.
fan as well. Obviously, you are true Bills fan. Um, but yeah, so there's that. And the other one thing I want to talk about in the NFL that's kind of a fun topic is they
Okay.
just announced that you're allowed to have a third helmet, like an alternate
I
helmet.
did see that. Yeah, I did see
And
that.
I have a love-hate relationship with this news because I think it's really cool for like teams to come up with new designs and stuff. But I
Mhm.
don't want the NFL to be like the NBA where they have 500 uniforms and no team has like a brand. It's just, oh, well, today we wear black and white and tomorrow we wear rainbow. And it's just like what am I looking at?
Yeah.
I don't like that.
No, I agree. I think the NFL, well, it's interesting because I do think the NBA has an issue, like an identity crisis issue with their teams, at least with the uniforms.
Mhm.
Just too many uniforms, and half of them don't match the color scheme
It doesn't make
of
any
the
sense.
team. Well, you see MLB is an example. MLB, well, they have the City Connect jerseys right now. They're kind of, not every team has them right now. I think by the end of this year, everyone but the Oakland Athletics, who don't have a city, and the New York Yankees, who, their tradition, are going to have a City Connect jersey. But if you look at the MLB, they do a really good job of kind of like, I mean, again, they play 162 games, and you play 3 games in 3 days. Thus, you need 3 different uniforms for those 3 different days. But they do a really good job of kind of maintaining the brand, like home, away, and alternate, and then like you
Yeah.
have a connect. And I think the NFL has sort of like it's almost gone in the opposite direction on the NBA, where like it's almost getting too generic. Like the Bills last year they basically had 2 different uniforms that they could wear. They mix and match the pants and the jerseys, but it was white jersey, blue jersey, white pants, blue pants. You know what I mean? Like they didn't wear um their throwback uniform, and then they had the red color, what was it, color rush uniforms from a couple of years ago.
I
So
love the Bills white throwback, by the way.
I do too, but they
That's
haven't worn
my
it.
like one of my favorite jerseys in the
Yeah,
NFL.
It is so good, and I don't know why they don't wear it anymore. It's such a good it's such a good jersey, but they haven't worn it in 2 years, and it sucks because it's such a good jersey. Um, so like yeah, I think having three is kind of bad because most teams only have one right now. You know what I mean? And a lot of the second one, like the Bills only have one right now. I know that. I think the Ravens only have one right now, right?
Yeah, they only wear a black helmet.
Yeah, they only yeah. So but if you look at a lot of the alternate second ones that came out last season, like the Saints, which I didn't think was good. Like I didn't think the Saints one was good. Who else? The Lions one, the blue helmets, right? They had blue alternate helmets, right? And but the issue was they could only wear them with their gray uniforms, so they didn't look good. You
Hmm.
know, like they couldn't wear them with their blue uniforms. So I agree with you that like the NBA has an issue, but I don't think that the NFL has gotten too far into that. I think to have you have a third alternate helmet is like a cool idea, but like most teams don't even have two right now, so it might be jumping the gun a little bit. I also think when you have 16 games or from 17 games in a season, like you have to wear your helmet away at least like 15 of those times. You know what I mean? Like they need to be 90, 85% of the games you play.
Yeah. What I like the other helmet option for, um, is like you only really wear it when you wear your alternate jersey. And
Yeah.
I love when teams have good throwback jerseys. I just think that's really cool to like pay respect to like the generations before you. And I think it looks weird. It would look weird if you have a throwback jersey, but your current helmet for a lot of teams.
Yes. Yeah, that's fair.
Like if the Buccaneers or something were wearing their orange creamsicle jerseys, but then like the brown helmet would just be like
Yeah.
weird. Um, but I don't want it to get like so crazy where the like in the NBA they like wear a different jersey all the time, or they just only wear their like new alternate jersey for that year,
Yeah.
the whole
Yeah,
season.
I also think the NBA, what drives me crazy about it is that they don't do home whites anymore. Like, I mean, I know not everyone
Yeah.
like teams still do it, but it's not as common as it used to be. Like it used to be home team always wear white. Oh,
Mhm.
road team always wear colored, whatever color jersey they have. Um, and the NFL was always kind of the opposite of that. Home always wear colored and road would always wear white. And the NFL, I feel like for the most part, is kind of stuck with that. There are some teams, like I think the Cowboys,
I
maybe
think they're the
yeah,
only team that wears white at home, right?
yeah. The Cowboys wear white at home. Um, so I think that the NFL, as long as they stay with that, I'm cool with it. Whereas the NBA, I think they need to get back to that, man. It's just it looks weird having like the Magic wear like black jerseys at home. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah. So kind of off of something you said, and you said like the NBA has an identity crisis like that, and that just kind of
Mhm.
made me start thinking about this stuff. And um, this is like a hot topic right now, but the rise of women's, specifically college basketball. I remember before the tournament, I obviously knew women's college basketball was gaining a lot of steam, but I was talking to my dad, and he was like, "Yeah, I was looking at the news, and they're like projecting the women's tournament to have more viewership than the men's tournament." And
Yeah,
I was like, there's no way. Like, I understand it's getting more popular, but there's no way people are going to watch more like women's basketball than men's, like women's college basketball. And I don't actually know the numbers off the top of my head, but I know like specific games in the women's tournament, like the
right.
Iowa like Final Four and championship game was like breaking records. I would assume I had to be almost positive that like non-Iowa games, like at the men's league, the men's tournament still like dominated viewership versus like a random like 4 or 5 seed matchup in women's. I assume. I don't actually know. But so obviously there's the big blow up with that, and that's really cool, I think. And then there's the Caitlin Clark blow up. But then a lot of stuff in the media has been about how WNBA players are like um almost
Very
seem like
nice.
jealous of Caitlin
Yeah.
Clark. And at first I was like agreeing with a lot of people that were saying how could they possibly be hating on Caitlin Clark? She's bringing so many eyes to the league that they've been complaining about wanting for so long, and that like makes no sense, and it's hypocritical for them to be critical of Caitlin Clark and kind of hate on her when she's helping their league out so much.
Yeah.
And at first I was like 100%, yeah, that makes no sense. But the more that I've thought about it, I think it's actually good that they're hating on Caitlin Clark. Maybe in not like a malicious way, but that's something that I think the NBA misses, and why people like look back on the NBA and be like, "Oh, it was so much better in the 90s and early 2000s," because people competed with each other. Not everyone was best friends in the league, and people like had rivalries. Like
Yeah,
that's what made Iowa LSU so watched, is because Angel Reese gave the ring signal to Caitlin Clark last year, and then Caitlin Clark
yeah.
like beat her in the next year, and that's why everyone loved it so much, because sports is about competing. And if they just like were like everyone propped up Caitlin Clark, everyone loved Caitlin Clark, there would be no like competitive fire there, and no one would be as interested to watch. And I think that's what the NBA misses now, is that after the game, LeBron's gonna go up to Luca and dap him up, and they're gonna take a picture and like be all like buddy buddy. When in 2000 he would have like he was leaving the arena getting beer dumped on him, and Kevin Garnett was telling him he was gonna go fuck his mom or something.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get that. Yeah, that's not the route that I thought about, but it makes sense that, I mean, the NBA or the WNBA, I should say, I would think is going to set so many ratings records for them
I
this
would
upcoming
think,
season.
yeah.
But yeah, that's a good point. I mean, I also think about it this way. You're in the WNBA right now. Like Diana Taurasi, I think was the biggest hater. She was the number one hater. Apparently she's like 41, 42 years old. So she's been in the league for 20 years, presumably. Uh, and you got to think about it this way. She's had a storied career, Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever do it, and been grinding away in the WNBA for 20 years, and there have been certainly people who care. Like sports fans should care, and a lot of sports fans haven't cared just because the WNBA has not been as big as it's going to be, or as big it is now, because it still is very big now compared to where it was even 10 years ago, right? If you're Diana Taurasi also, and you see this 21-year-old kid, you know, killing the WNBA, right, setting scoring records, breaking some of her records, I'm sure, and everyone's going crazy over it. Everyone's going crazy. She's had basically 2 years where she's been the number one player in the country. And you see that and you're like, I've been doing this for 20 years.
Right.
Like nobody cares about,
Kind of
like
makes
I've been doing this
sense
for
why
20
they're a
years
little
and
like,
nobody cares about like the WNBA, like, and of course the WNBA is going to be more competitive than the NCAA because that's just how everything works, right? Like the NBA is more competitive than the NCAA and stuff like that.
right.
So by the time she gets to, Caitlin Clark's not going to be dropping 40 points a game in the WNBA. I don't think, right off the bat. So yeah, if you're Diana Taurasi, like yeah, of course, yeah, you have some right to be like, hey, what about us? Like, what about me? What about like? And I don't even think that's really the route she took. I think her route was that like she's gonna have a rude awakening in the WNBA, which is probably true. Like that's just true for most rookies. Like your first week in the pros is not going to be as lucrative, and scoring wise as your first week in the NCAA. So. I understand like there is probably also this point where if you're in the WNBA, you're part of you's happy to have Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese and Paige Beckers, coming to the NBA. I actually don't think Paige Beckers is coming this season. I think she's staying another year in college. I could be wrong. But my point is though, when you're getting all these stars, it's good for the WNBA if you're getting all these eyes, but you also have to have this same thought where it's like, man, we've been doing this. Like it's not like Caitlin Clark's doing. I mean, she is doing record, like she is setting records, she is breaking records that nobody has achieved, but it's not like there hasn't been amazing college basketball players before Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese. So, if you're Diana Taurasi, I can understand being a little bitter about the whole thing, not because of Caitlin Clark, but because hey, what about like I should have gotten, we should have been getting this
Yeah, it's a
publicity
tough situation
or
to be in.
and sort of projecting that on Caitlin Clark. I do think what Diane Taurasi said, I forget what it was. Like it was a kind of like old head kind of hating. And I think people kind of get a little, sort of what you said, like people were upset about it. And I was even kind of like, oh, what was the point of that? But, I think uh, with the Indiana Fever might have like already been selling tickets to play Diana Taurasi. Like they're already marketing it as like one of the biggest games of the season when Caitlin Clark and Diana Taurasi play each other for the first time. So
That's
it's
what the
gonna be
NBA
good
is
for the
missing
sport.
too.
Like it's gonna be good, and I think there is like I think the NBA, the men's NBA does miss a little bit of that, hatred
Remember
vitriol.
Remember when there was just a random regular season game that was Warriors Thunder the
Hmm.
year Kevin Durant went to the Warriors?
Yeah.
Like I watched that game and I wouldn't care about a random like
Yeah.
Warriors Thunder game now. But it was Kevin Durant the first year after he left the Thunder, and it was Russell Westbrook who you knew was gonna like go 100 miles an hour and like talk shit to him.
Yeah.
Like that was amazing. And that's what the
Yeah.
NBA needs more of.
I agree. Do you think the NFL has, like, where do you think the NFL stands on this? Because a couple years ago, I would have said the NFL is probably in the right place on this, where there are certainly rivalries where guys hate each other. Um, like I feel like Pat Mahomes and Joe Burrow do not like each other. You know what I mean? I don't think
Do
Pat
you feel
Mahomes
like you
actually
see them like bicker a lot, or is that more like the media like just
might
kind
be
of
the media
props up
thing.
the rivalry?
I think with the NFL, when you're a quarterback, like you're not on the field at the same time, so you don't really talk that much. I also don't think Pat Mahomes really cares that much about Joe Burrow at this point, just because he sort of dismissed him.
I don't think the NFL's really had a guy that'll get in your face like that at quarterback since like Brady. Like
Yeah.
Brady obviously did that in New England, and he was doing it a little bit in Tampa. I remember, I think it was his first year. I don't remember who it was. He like got in someone's face on defense or something like that, and
Oh, it was the Super Bowl. It was the Super Bowl
wasn't
against
it? Yeah,
who was it?
they played the Chiefs.
Was it Tyrann Mathieu?
I want to say it was Tyrann Mathieu.
I think it was
Yeah,
Tyrann
that's
Mathieu.
what I
Yeah,
was gonna
yeah.
say, but I was imagining him in a Saints uniform, and I was like, I don't think that was the game. But yeah,
Well,
he was
then,
on the Chiefs.
but the Saints did play the Bucks 3 times that year.
Yeah,
Then the Saints smoked them the first 2 games, and I remember like the Saints were like celebrating in the Bucks locker room, and then the Bucks beat the Saints in the playoffs. And then I remember like Tom Brady was playing catch with Drew Brees' sons after the game.
which I think
So
is like fine, whatever.
this
But I
like
just more rivalry is better for sports.
I think in the NFL, most of those like enforcer types or talking crap shit is like it's gonna be the like it's gonna be defense talking to the offense. Like it's not like you're not gonna see two quarterbacks really yell at each other.
I think the
Um,
problem, honestly, with both leagues is that you can't really do anything about it anymore.
yeah,
Like Ray Lewis can't like talk shit to someone on offense and then like hit them across the middle and break their spine.
yeah.
You know what I
Well,
mean?
might be a good thing, but yeah,
Which might be a good thing,
yeah,
but like same type of thing in the NBA. Like you can't like talk shit to someone and then like throw them an elbow to the throat like you
yeah,
could in the 90s
yeah. That's
and get
true.
away with that.
I
That's
think
probably
that's
what
true.
breeded that, but I kind of miss that. Not gonna lie.
I agree. I agree. I mean, yeah, those are like the enforcer types, like just sort of aren't in the NBA as much. Like Kendrick Perkins,
They're useless now.
yeah, yeah, like the enforcer types used to be like big, like bruising bigs. You know what I mean? Like meatballs almost, like Kendrick
Yeah.
Perkins and I'm aging myself in like a young way. Um, Bad Boy Pistons, center.
Thinking
I
of Ben
can't.
Wallace,
No, no, no. The
Speed
90s.
Wallace.
80, 89, 90. The center. I can't forget
Are you?
remember his
Is it
name.
not Rasheed Wallace?
No, no, no. But Rasheed Wallace also fits into this example. But Rasheed Wallace was also like
Oh, like Rick Mahorn or Bill Lambier.
Bill Lambier. That's it.
Yeah,
That's what I
yeah,
was thinking. Bill Lambier's whole thing was just to like piss Larry Bird off, and
yeah.
like we don't have that in the
Like
NBA
he would
anymore.
be completely useless in the NBA
Yes,
now.
yes, completely useless. But also Draymond Green exists. So
So what you need though is you need the stars to be the like rivalry shit talker guys, because then they can back it up with just their play.
Yeah, that's true.
Like they can be talking shit to someone and then drop 40.
Well, also, I mean, you remember Luca, what did he say to Devin Booker a couple of years ago? Like everyone likes to talk when they're up or something like that. Like that was
Luca and Devin Booker, that was like I feel like a real thing, and they're two people that I think will like get into it like that, which I
yeah,
think was great. But then the media props it up, and then the players shy away from it,
yeah. Well,
which I feel like they didn't used to do.
I also think we're in this culture in the NBA where it's so ring centric that if you're like the NBA fans on NBA Twitter also like to go back and forth on everything. Like they like to criticize everything. Like if you're Luka Doncic, if Luka Doncic did that right now to Devin Booker, or Devin Booker did anything to Luka, like all it would be was people hating them online. Like, oh my God, how are you talking shit and you're not even gonna make the finals? Like what are
Right.
you doing? You know what I mean? Stuff like that. So I think if you're a player, I mean, I don't know how much players. I don't think Luka Doncic cares about that at all. I don't know how much he's on social media, but I do think fans don't like. There's also kind of an identity crisis with fans where they don't really know what they want, and like mostly because they're going to criticize anyone else other than their favorite player or their favorite team. So
Yeah.
yeah, I do think like players will shy away from it because they don't want to get criticized for, oh, well, Luka's never been to the finals. You know what I mean? Oh, well, Devin Booker blew a 2-0 lead in the finals. Like you're just opening yourself up to more criticism, which is already rampant in that league because nobody, it's weird. Like the NBA just, NBA fans seem to not really enjoy their stars half the time. You know what I mean? Like they just like to like again, like I'm a Bills fan, right? Like I'm a prop up Josh Allen and like
Mhm.
which is cool, but like that doesn't mean I'm gonna be like, oh, Lamar Jackson's horrible. I mean, I know I've already actually talked about Jackson on this podcast and why, there's a whole thing, but like I just think of the NBA like instead of propping up their stars, they like to kind of tear down other stars more so. And I think that also, keeps players away from trying to be that enforcer and talk shit. Cause like even Jimmy Butler's done it, right? Jimmy Butler's talked a lot of shit over his career. And I
Mhm.
think people liked it for a very long period of time. And now people are kind of just like, oh, he's kind of annoying. Like he's just kind of annoying. You know what I mean? Which
Yeah.
I guess is sort of the inherent in being that type of,
He's kind of the
type
last
of player.
breed of that
Yeah.
like Kobe like mindset. Like I don't know how else to describe it, of like ultra competitive.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
Um,
also different because like with Kobe, people are like, oh, Kobe mentality, Mamba mentality, but it was like half of Kobe's thing was he was just an asshole to his teammates. And it's like, well, you don't want that either, right? Like you don't you want your uh players to like each other because they have to play together. So, and it goes back and forth. I would like the NBA to get more interested in the sense of like, yeah, what you said, like you want rivalries, you want hatred, but I understand why a player is going to shy away from that and just focus on because NBA is so good at this point that it's like you can't take a moment to not continue getting better at the actual game of basketball or else you're going to get left behind.
on top of that, I guess this is just kind of turned into like a very sports centric
Yes,
episode,
yeah.
but I I know that it's like in the works, but I really think the NBA needs expansion because I think it is just like the teams are just like too good now.
Yeah.
Like the your average like 12th player that gets 0 minutes on it. I saw like Nick Wright talk about this or something. Like your average 12th player on an NBA team right now, 10 years ago would have been like a starter getting like good minutes.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah, I
that's the way it
agree.
feels. Um, and I think, I mean, the NBA is just so good now, and I don't know if rules need to change or something. I don't really like that there's like multiple people just averaging 30. I feel like that isn't like good for a product.
I
You agree
think
with that or no? Or is it just like more scoring is cool?
It depends. I think it depends on how you get there, right? Like how you land on 35 points a game or whatever. Because it's not like that's like I want to say like that is obviously scoring is certainly up in the NBA. There's no denying that. But if you're getting to that point, like if teams are just shooting higher percentages, like what are you gonna how are you gonna change that? Like you're not gonna change that, right? Which is what's happening is teams are just they're becoming more efficient. Every player in the NBA now is more efficient than they would have been 10 years ago. Um, but if it's just like Shea Gilgeous-Alexander, like he shot, he scored what 40 points the other day and shot like 25 free throws. And it's like
Yeah,
that's
against
just
the
boring.
Kings, who just suck now.
Yeah, the Kings just oh man, the Kings just are not well, they have everyone like Kevin Herter's out. Um DeMontis is not hurt, I don't think, but he's certainly I don't want to say slumping, but I don't know. I
He
think his
just lost his
expectations are not
double
there.
double
I
streak.
know that's what got me that's what made me think about that. Someone else is hurt too. I can't think of who, but whatever. Maybe I'm making that up. But
Malik Monk.
Malik Monk. Okay. All right. Malik Monk is also hurt. So that doesn't help either. Hopefully they'll be back for the
Well, then
playoffs, but
they're
I
on the
don't.
plane and they're just gonna lose to their play-in options are Booker, KD, Beal, the Warriors, or LeBron in the playoffs. Like they're like,
I mean, hey, they took the Warriors to 7 games last year, so there's always that.
yeah, I know. I just tangent, but back to
Yeah.
what you were saying.
So what was I saying? Oh, 30 points. Yeah, so the free throws. I think the NBA and basketball in general really has a free throw problem. And the Celtics Bucks game the other day had 2 free throws the entire game. Like
Actually, I didn't see that.
genuinely. Like I genuinely I saw someone tweet that and I thought it was a joke and I checked it. The Celtics didn't shoot a single free throw in the entire game. And they lost by like 13 points. And the Bucks shot 2 free throws. And they won, I think they went 1 for 2. It's not really important how they went, but I genuinely was like, that can't be real. So if the NBA is saying, okay, we're gonna have we're gonna call less fouls, I think that's a great thing. I think that is a fantastic thing. Um, I also have always kind of had an issue with how basketball ends their games. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? Like the way like NBA endings, not just NBA, but college basketball too.
Yeah,
College basketball might
college.
be more into this. Is like man, it slows down to a halt where you're just fouling, hoping a guy misses a free throw, fouling, hope a guy misses the free throw. Like, and it's just I understand that that is the correct strategy. Like that is the only strategy. Like I don't know what else you would do unless you have time on the
You can't
clock.
just let them burn 80% of the
Right.
clock. Yeah.
Exactly. So I don't know how you fix that, but like that is something where it's just kind of like it's basically we're just buying time until the last possession and hoping that it's a 1 possession game going into the final 20 seconds of the game. Um, I think college basketball has done a bit of an interesting thing, right? Where college basketball, from my understanding, calls a lot less free throws than the NBA. And obviously NBA players are much better free throw shooters than college basketball. There's no doubt about that. But there's always this like this meme almost in the college basketball where everyone it's like everyone's gangster until that 0 for 0 shows up in college basketball, like shooting your first free throws of the game with 30 seconds left on the clock, and you need to make both free throws to either tie the game or to extend it to a 2 possession game. So it's like there is something to be said about like your first or second free throws of the game, right, might be in the most critical point of the game. I'm just going on a tangent about free throws at this point. I'm not realizing. But yeah, scoring. I think scoring's going up is good because players are just getting more efficient. Teams are getting more efficient, right? Spacing is more efficient. And, spacing is creating more efficient shots
Yeah.
in the paint at this point.
Which is one
Um,
saying I think expansion would help.
right.
So I think part of the reason scoring is up like that for like specific players is that the team is so good, like top to like the 10 players that play or whatever, that it facilitates that. But at the same time, I don't know, like maybe it's just the fact that there's better shooting. and regardless if there's expansion or not, that's going to happen. I don't know. I
I
don't know.
think I think
Maybe
expansion.
the NBA is just so talented that like this is just here, like that's just what it is.
I think that's part of it, but I do think expanding the teams and spreading out the talent, even if it's just one player of each team going to another, you know what I mean? Like, because that's
Mhm.
what it would essentially be. Um, I mean, that's certainly going to help, right? Like, you're taking this, I think you can protect 6 or 7 guys. Like, you're basically taking the sixth or seventh best player on each team and moving them to a new team. Like, that can't, uh, you know, that's not going to help scoring, right? Like, that's gonna create more parity, I would think, less efficient teams. But I think teams will then respond and say, okay, well, you took our seventh guy, all right, our eighth guy is actually just as efficient. So,
But
you
like
know,
the way I want to explain this, make this can be the last thing we say on it. Like one of the best teams of the 2010s was like the 2010 Heat, right?
yeah.
Big three: LeBron, Wade, Bosh. Their fourth best player in 2010 was Mario Chalmers.
Probably,
They got Ray Allen later on, obviously. Was their fourth
uh,
best player Mario Chalmers?
Shane Battier.
He wasn't there at first
Oh, was he not there at first?
when they went to the final. He was, I think he came in
Maybe.
13 and 14
Yeah, it might have been. It might have
or
been.
12 and 13.
Might have been
They
Mario
went 10,
Chalmers.
11, 12, 13. Yeah.
Might have been Mario Chalmers. I'm trying to think, but I can't think of anyone
Like there
else.
was Mike Miller, like Joel Anthony was in the starting lineup.
Yeah,
Would Mario
yeah.
Chalmers start on any team in the league?
And he currently or then
Currently,
currently no, currently no.
he was the fourth best player on a championship team.
Yeah.
Would he be the sixth man for like any team? Like okay, the Pistons, like I guess like maybe
Maybe
probably
yeah,
any
maybe
playoff team, would he be in the rotation?
I don't think so.
I
No.
don't think so.
Yeah.
That's just like an example that I have.
Respect Kansas legend Mario Chalmers, please.
Yeah, I mean he
Um,
was like fine for the time. Like he was a starting caliber point guard in 2010.
well, yeah, I also think yeah, the style of play has changed a lot. Where if you're not, if you can't knock down like a pull up three consistently,
Yeah, of course there's like different skill sets that are valued more. But yeah, so
um,
I think that's good. Unless
yeah,
you have anything else, like
yeah,
that was a lot of
too
sports stuff.
well, too much sports for one day.
And it's I think like that's not necessarily a bad thing because
I don't think
it's
so.
just what we're interested in, and we should just take these conversations wherever we want to go. But
Sure.
I want to kind of get into our like week in review type stuff, and
Yeah.
that's something specific I want to talk about because this past week on Monday I had an interview for a technically internship, so job interview stuff, which I think is an interesting topic to talk about when you're 22, 23 years old. Um, and I think interviews, the interview process in general, is just really weird and backwards because at the end of the day, you're trying to kind of get the interviewers to like you in a
Yeah.
sense. And if I were to go tell someone how to get someone else to like you, I would not say, go talk about yourself and talk about how amazing you are.
Yeah.
That's kind of what you have to do in an interview to like sell yourself.
Yeah.
So it's kind of just this weird dynamic of doing exactly what you shouldn't do to get someone to like you with the goal of getting them to like you.
Yeah, that's
Sense?
fair. Yeah, I mean you're pitching yourself, right? Like you're
Right.
pitching yourself to someone. Um and it is a weird, certainly it's a weird dynamic. I haven't, you know what I mean? I like I do think there are ways of trying to hopefully make it conversational, but you're also at the hands, right? Like you're at the hands of the interviewer. Like what are they like they're steering the conversation, right? Like
Right.
they can stop you in your tracks. And I've had interviews where it is just a conversation of us just hanging out and talking, and it works out. But if the interviewer doesn't want it to go that way, they certainly aren't going to make it that way. But the entire time, in that conversation, you basically still are just being like, well, I've done this. Actually, I've done this too. Oh, I'm actually very qualified at this. So I agree with you that it's like, yeah, you're trying to make someone like you. Um, and that is a very strange way. But I do think the interviewer is aware of that. Like the interviewer is aware of
Yeah.
like, this is what I
The
need.
dynamic.
I need this guy to pitch himself, be honest about himself a little bit and say, hey, what do you need to grow in? And or what what they need to grow and but what are they good at, what skill sets are they going to bring? So it is uncomfortable and it's awkward, but like I don't know like what else you would, because you do need to learn about the person, right? so
Right.
so like yeah, if you're creating a friendship and I was like, all right, Tim, let's grab a drink sometime, and you're just like, dude, I you don't even understand how good I am at
Right.
Microsoft Excel, I'd be like, all right, man, like lay off, like relax. But in the setting of an interview, I guess it makes sense. But I do agree with you. It is a very uncomfortable and kind of awkward situation that both people are put in. But I think both people have to be kind of aware of like this is the thing we have to do. This is as society, this is what we decided is
Right.
our objective in this situation.
Yeah, and for me too, like maybe this is just my own personal insecurities and stuff, but when you're a year out of college, I also feel kind of weird trying to like prop up my accomplishments and uh qualifications
Yeah.
because it's like, yeah, I graduated from college, I have a degree, and I worked this job at like an entry level or whatever. And it's not like, yeah, I have 8 years of experience in this industry. Like, that's
Right.
why you should trust me to do this.
Yeah.
So I feel like a little bit weird trying to prop up that stuff too, on top of what we already talked about.
Yeah.
And that's kind of weird. So I don't know what your experiences have been like
I
in
mean,
interviews and stuff.
some honestly, like a lot of my interviews in my life, because I've worked so many jobs at this point, but a lot of my interviews in life, especially those entry level jobs, have just been like, okay, here's the job. Do you want to do it? Like, you know what I mean? Like a lot of my jobs are like, so like when I first started at Delta Sonic, um, the car wash in Rochester, New York, Western New York. It was basically just like, hey, here's the job. Are you like, can you do these things? Like, are you capable of showing up on time? You know what I mean? Just because like it was like I was 16 and like what else are they gonna ask me, right?
Right.
And so like I do agree, like, but I have also had interviews where it is basically just like, okay, talk about how great you are. I had an interview one time where basically they were asking me to them criticize like their company and like how I could make it better, which is super awkward because you don't want to overstep your bounds.
Yeah.
You don't want to hit a sore spot about like, and then the interviewee or the interviewer then goes like, well, actually, you don't know what you're talking about. And it's just like,
Like,
you know
well,
what I
yeah.
mean? Yeah, of course I don't know what I'm talking about. I don't work for you. So um I do think it is awkward. I do think it is like interesting. I think you sort of just have to like embrace it. And I think, you know, yeah, when you're in college and you have a limited experience, or I read out of college and you have limited experience, it is sort of tough to do that sometimes because it's like, well, what am I going to talk about other than like the one experience I have in this job or whatever it may be,
Right.
right? But then you can go to, oh, I did this in college, so I agree. It's an awkward the kind of scenario. I've interviewed people for jobs at my current job, and it's trust me, man, it is like also very awkward because like I don't, you know what I mean? Some of the times it's like I know what I'm looking for, but like how do I get that out of someone?
Hmm.
Um, and in my industry, a lot of it is people are like, oh, you throw resumes around. Well, in my industry, you're throwing reels around. Like you put your best 10 minutes on tape and you just send it around to people and hope it's enough. And watching when I'm interviewing people for positions we're filling and I'll watch these reels, it's like I'll watch them like, okay, this is the guy, like this is the best guy. You know what I mean? Like you can see like,
Hmm.
okay, this you can almost rank them as to how good they are and what guys need to get better at or what people need to get better at. So in actual interview, you just kind of hoping like they're kind of they're not a bad guy. Like they're not arrogant. They're not like they're just kind of, you know, who they were on camera. Like they're just kind of a chill guy that you're going to be able to work with in a setting, and hoping that they are hardworking enough where they're going to continue to try to get better. So yeah, it's certainly an awkward scenario to be
Definitely.
put. So
You have anything from the last week or two that you want to talk about?
yeah, I've had a weird week. I've had a weird week. I don't know what has gotten into me, but I've been a little under the weather, And it's weird because like I remember like when you were in high school, even in college a little bit, definitely in college. I don't know, I was saying a little bit, but if you're in high school, you're in college, and you're sick, man, it's just like I'm gonna stay home. I'm just gonna chill. You know what I mean? Like I guess that's sort of up to the discretion of your parents as well in high school, But if you're sick, like if you're actually sick, just you stay home for a day and you try to feel better. But like when you're an adult, like calling out sick from work, yeah, I haven't called out sick from work in years. I've probably done it like twice over the course of the past 6 years, 6.5 years I've been working. Um, so like having to work, and I'm not to say I'm like super sick, but like I'm sick enough where I'm like it affects my day to day.
Right.
Uh, I'm more tired. Can't wake up in the morning because my body's like begging me, no, please, like just rest for a little bit, right? Um, and also still trying to go to the gym, and it's like I don't even know, like it's not like overtly like I'm coughing all over the place or sneezing all over the place. It's just like I'm super like run down all the time and exhausted and constantly like warm or whatever. So like that's been kind of something I've been playing with, but for the most part, it hasn't affected like much of my life other than trying to go to bed and wake up. Um, but yeah, I mean, we have had a lot of rain here in Old Binghamton. It's currently raining. I don't know if you can hear it. Um, the only reason I bring that up is that makes my job way harder when it comes to covering baseball games because notoriously baseball and softball teams do not often play when it rains because you can't. So that's made my life a little harder. Other than that, nothing too crazy. Been going to the gym more often. I think my goal from 2 weeks ago was go to the gym like 5 days of the next 7 days, which I did accomplish.
Let's
Uh,
go.
and since then, I've been doing it probably 4 times a week of the next, 4 times a week over the last couple of weeks. So yeah, I've nothing too crazy trying to figure out what my next objective, big project is, stuff like that. So and I actually have today off. I don't have to work today. So there's that.
Very
That's
nice. Me
pretty
neither.
dope. There we go. There we go. How was Florida?
Florida was great. Really nice to see my family. All my cousins came down too, so that was really cool. Really cool experience. My goal was to not be so food focused and kind of just enjoy my time, which I definitely did, maybe even
Mhm.
too much. I weighed myself on like day 4 because I knew I was just like pounding food,
Sure.
and I was up 15 pounds. Yeah. Which is all just like food sitting in your gut because
Sure.
I was trying to be really good before I went, and like your body holding on to water because you're eating a bunch of food and stuff like that. Like
Yeah.
I've been back for like 5 or 6 days, and I'm like up less than a pound since before I went. Like your body like just does that, and my body like loves to hold on to stuff especially long for whatever reason. And I was literally like pounding food because I was just like really enjoying myself. So I
Yeah.
did, I guess, accomplish my goal. I think I went a little harder than I would have liked. But that's kind of like the balance, and I kind of found the balance throughout the rest of the trip after that when I was like, whoa, like
Yeah.
I just did not need to eat that much.
Yeah.
But overall, it was great. Nice to get away. I mean, starting to like make me really realize, you know, post college, you just don't see your parents as much.
Definitely.
Like going and seeing them for 10 days straight after not seeing them for a few months. was really cool, was really good, and you start to appreciate small things more for sure. Um, my dad and I had a great conversation about this book he read about it's called How to Die with Zero. And what that's about is focusing more on your life, about like not just saving money for the sake of dying with a bunch of money, but like making financial and other life investments to have a lot of great experiences rather than just like save, and then all of a sudden you're 80 years old and you're like, well, I can't even do anything with this money now. Or it's a lot of like financially like that. So but in general, it's like the overarching idea of try to create as many experiences as you can while you can do anything you want, and then
Right.
you have those memories forever type stuff. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, I get that. I mean, yeah, I actually completely forgot that your parents don't live in Rochester anymore. Like
yeah.
yeah, like that went over my head. I completely forgot about that. Um,
Well, they spend
my
half
parents,
the year in Florida.
right. So yeah. And so yeah, I only see, I mean, I live 2.5 hours away from my parents, less than 2.5 hours away from my parents. And I see them like twice a year, which is my own fault. Like that's my own, you know what I mean? Just because I work so much. But it's like, yeah, it's true. Like I saw them on Easter and saw my niece and my nephew and all my siblings on Easter. And I was like, oh, so like I don't do this enough, right? Like yeah, it's just nice to catch up and like I remember it was funny because like to go back to the college basketball we talk a lot about college basketball on this podcast. I realized going back to the college basketball scenario, I threw on whatever game, whatever women's game was on. I can't remember off the top of my head. It might have been UConn. I don't remember. My point is though, I turned it on. My dad was like, he was like, women's basketball, like you never watch women's basketball. I was like, no, it's big now. Like people watch it. Like it's big now. We just watched Paige Beckers, destroy whoever she was playing that night, and I can't remember who it was. Um, and yeah, that was cool. I mean, it's like yeah, it's like as you get older, like I actually was thinking a lot about this last night. It's like as you get older, like you realize like you're every single person every single adult is like just kind of for the like not for the most part, but like we're all kind of pretty dumb. You know what I mean? We're all trying to like figure this whole
They're all
life
just
thing out.
winging it.
Yeah, and like no one ever like I mean, sure people do. They're like, like no one's ever gets up one day like, oh, I got it, figured it out. Like, you
Right.
know what I mean? And that goes for our parents as well, where it's like they are also you know, just because they seem successful or just because they seem always so sure of themselves or confident, it's like, nah, they're just people. Like they're just here to hang out and like they want to see their kids just as much as we want to see them and yeah, like growing up and kind of realizing that like once you're out of college is like pretty important because it's like, oh, I should probably like both my parents' birthdays were this week. Um, and I called them and I could tell like it was like even though I couldn't see them like just being able to FaceTime them
Yeah.
talk for 10 minutes about oh yeah I went to church and now I'm cleaning out my truck like my dad just was cleaning his truck for his birthday and like that was like his whole thing so yeah I definitely think like as you get older it's like you start to realize like this relationship growing up was always like they were trying to take care of me my entire life and now it's like like, oh, like not just the fact that I miss them, but it is like, well, they deserve, they also deserve to have the company of their product, right? And the kids that they raise. So yeah, I think that's important for sure.
Definitely. All right. Well, do you have a goal for this week?
Goal for this week. Goal for the feel better, I guess. I don't like
Yeah,
this
that's
rate I'm
very
most
fair.
goal for this week. You go first. I gotta think about this.
I got a kind of thing too here. I wish I came more prepared. Trying to think of well, I have two more interviews next week. So I guess my goal for those, I think I did fine in my interview this week, but my goal for them is to not feel as anxious beforehand, I guess.
Okay.
To be more relaxed. I think my
Like
interview went fine, and like once it started, I was fine. But like the hours leading up to it, I was like, pit in my stomach, like, which I think is good to have some of that.
yeah.
But I want to manage that better and not feel like my whole day revolves around it, and it's like a massive, like, oh my God, that's done, and things like that.
So yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that's fair. I mean, quelling anxiety. I think just as you get exposed to stuff, like it's a whole like bully thing. Like, well, if you avoid it, it's always going to build up in your head. Like after the first one, I think you're going to be like, oh, okay, wasn't that bad. So
Right.
that's a good objective for me. I was thinking about this last night. I don't know how much I can actually talk about it on air. So I'm gonna try to tread lightly a little bit. At some point, I will be able to talk about this on air. So I'm not gonna. I'm building up to something that I'm gonna sort of preview right now, tease right now. I have an important phone call later today, and that I'm gonna pitch some ideas, questions, about my own creative process, right? Like how I want to change things in my creative process and potentially get better. And depending on how that goes, depending on the feedback that goes, I might be I want to make a decision. By the next time we talk, I want to make a definitive decision about my next step in my creative process. Which we can talk about off air. But at a certain point, I will uh you know come back on here and explain the whole thing. But I think for me, I want to make a definitive decision in the next week on this thing that I am talking about that am not actually talking about, if that makes
So
sense.
your goal for the week is to make the decision,
Make a decision on
a
this
well
thing.
thought out decision.
A
Yeah.
well thought out decision that I have considered. But also my girlfriend's in town. So also we're gonna hit the town, as they say. It's
Mm.
Bingham Restaurant Week.
Oh,
So going to shout out to my Binghamton viewers, my Binghamton listeners, Garage Taco. If I'm there, come say hi. Maybe I'll give you an autograph. I don't know.
hey,
Maybe.
you're
Just
not busy.
make sure my girlfriend's like in the bathroom or something. I don't want to interrupt.
Yeah, yeah.
So that is my very vague, very vague goal for the week.
I like it. I mean, I think that's a lot. Uh, like it's
Yeah.
tough because you can't say a lot about it, but whenever you have a big, I don't know, life decision or something like that, um, it's important to like actually block out time to be like, all right, I need to really weigh my options and everything
Yeah.
like that.
Which
So
I have not.
that's a legitimate, like, good goal, I think.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, well, unless you have anything else, I think we're good here. This was what, like an hour?
Yeah, almost a little less than an hour. Yeah, I think we're good. We can do so this is what the fourth time in 4 weeks.
Yeah,
Okay. We'll try to do it.
we're on pace.
We're on pace. I guess we started kind of earlier in the weeks. I think that probably makes more sense to have them do earlier in the week. So we'll find a schedule. We'll find a schedule.
Yeah,
But for the time being, thank you all for listening,
yeah.
watching.
All right. Peace out, everybody. Next episode, we actually might have a guest. We've been kind of hinting at that, but been trying to figure
Yeah.
it out.
Time
But
time conflicts are tough.
yeah, but thank you guys for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff.
Yes, yes,
Uh,
yes.
and yeah, we'll see you in the next one. Peace.